Hollywood is once again mourning the loss of one of its most iconic yet troubled stars. Michael Madsen, best known for his gritty, unforgettable roles in films like Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, and Donnie Brasco, has died. The 66-year-old actor passed away from heart failure, with sources confirming that long-term complications from alcoholism contributed significantly to his death. The news of Madsen's passing has shaken the entertainment industry and left fans across the globe in sorrow. For decades, Madsen stood as a symbol of rugged, unpredictable intensity in American cinema. But behind the steely gaze and gravelly voice was a man who struggled quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, with personal demons that followed him throughout his career. Born on September 25, 1957, in Chicago, Illinois, Michael Madsen came from a family with artistic roots. His mother, Elaine, was a filmmaker and poet, and it wasn't long before Michael followed suit, drawn to storytelling not through words, but through the raw expressiveness of acting. He burst onto the Hollywood scene in the 1980s, but cemented his legacy in the early 90s with Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, in which he played the chilling and unforgettable Mr. Blonde. The ear-cutting scene remains one of the most talked-about moments in independent film history. From there, Madsen carved out a niche as the go-to actor for tough guy roles that walked a thin line between villain and antihero. His performances in The Getaway, Species, Mulholland Falls, and Tarantino's Kill Bill series showcased his ability to inject depth into characters that might have been one note in the hands of lesser actors. Despite never being a household name in the traditional sense, Madsen enjoyed cult status. His distinctive look, voice, and acting style made him a favorite among directors and audiences who appreciated his authenticity. However, Madsen's life off-screen was far from the controlled chaos he portrayed on camera. The actor had long battled issues with substance abuse. He was candid in interviews about his struggles with alcohol and his attempts at rehabilitation. Friends and colleagues described him as both incredibly charismatic and deeply troubled, a man whose demons sometimes overshadowed his talent. In recent years, Madsen had faced multiple personal challenges, including legal troubles, financial setbacks, and the devastating loss of his son, Hudson Madsen, to suicide in 2022. That tragedy hit Madsen hard, and those close to him said he never fully recovered from the emotional toll. According to reports from close family sources, Madsen had been in and out of treatment centers over the years. Though he had periods of sobriety, the long-term impact of alcohol abuse took a toll on his physical health. In the days leading up to his death, the actor had reportedly been experiencing symptoms related to heart complications. He died of heart failure, with medical examiners attributing the cause as being linked to years of alcohol-related damage to his cardiovascular system. As news of his passing spread, tributes poured in from fans and fellow actors alike. Quentin Tarantino released a statement calling Madsen one of the most fearless and unforgettable actors I've ever worked with. Tarantino added, "He brought truth to every role, and behind that tough exterior was a deeply sensitive, complicated man. I'll miss him forever." Uma Thurman, Madsen's Kill Bill co-star, described him as a wild, talented soul who made every scene electric. Actor Tim Roth, another Tarantino regular, said, "Michael had the kind of presence that you couldn't fake. He lived hard, loved deeply, and his loss is just heartbreaking." While Michael Madsen's personal life was filled with turbulence, his work on screen left a lasting impression. He portrayed characters that felt real, often flawed, sometimes terrifying, but always human. He never chased after polished stardom or played it safe. Instead, he embraced the chaotic beauty of being an outsider, and in doing so, became a legend in his own right. His death is a painful reminder of the toll addiction can take, not just on the individual, but on those who love them. Yet in remembering Madsen, many will choose to celebrate his work, his honesty, and the deeply human vulnerability he brought to both his characters and his own life. Michael Madsen may be gone, but his legacy lives on in the unforgettable characters he brought to life and the loyal fan base that admired his authenticity. Hollywood has lost a true original, a rebel with a bruised heart, whose story was as raw and complex as any film he ever made. May he finally find the peace that often eluded him in life. But this goodbye is more than just the end of a career. It is the closing of a chapter in American cinema that will never be rewritten. Madsen represented a breed of actor that is becoming increasingly rare in Hollywood. The unpredictable, magnetic, blue-collar performer who could steal a scene with just a glance. He didn't chase awards or bow to the politics of the industry. He remained true to who he was, even when it meant losing roles or drifting to the margins of the A-list. And that's why audiences respected him. He didn't play characters, he was them. Whether it was the volatile Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs, the loyal Bud in Kill Bill, or the street-smart Sonny in Donnie Brasco, Madsen injected each role with a truthfulness that came from somewhere deep within. You could feel the pain, the anger, the vulnerability, and the underlying humanity behind the grit. He had the kind of emotional range that couldn't be taught in acting schools. It came from life, from loss, from experience. Those who worked with him often described Madsen as intensely passionate and deeply introspective. He could be both the life of the party and the quiet thinker off in the corner, scribbling poems or lines in his notebook. In fact, Madsen was also a published poet, and his writing, raw, unfiltered, and often heartbreaking, reflected the complexity of his inner world. Much like his performances, his poetry peeled back layers of a man who felt everything too deeply and lived as if every moment mattered. Behind the tough guy persona was someone incredibly sensitive. Madsen loved animals, adored his children, and was loyal to his friends, even when loyalty cost him. He was outspoken in his support for fellow actors who were struggling and never shied away from calling out injustices within the industry. He was the type of person who would give his last dollar to someone he believed in, even if he didn't have much to spare. But life was not easy for Madsen. His battles with addiction were long and public. He went through rehab multiple times and was open about his struggles with alcohol and the toll it took on his health, career, and family. The tragic loss of his son, Hudson Madsen, in 2022 was a heartbreak from which many say he never fully recovered. That profound sorrow, coupled with years of emotional wear and tear, began to show in his physical health, eventually leading to the heart failure that claimed his life. And yet through it all, Michael kept working. He kept creating. Even when the roles became smaller, the budget tighter, or the screen time shorter, he gave everything to each performance. His belief in the power of storytelling never faded, and he carried that torch to the very end. In recent years, he had begun working on more independent projects, lending his gravitas to up-and-coming filmmakers who grew up idolizing his work. It was his way of giving back to a craft that had both saved and tortured him. In remembering Madsen, it's important to acknowledge the whole man, the actor, the poet, the father, the fighter. He wasn't perfect, but he was real. In a world that often rewards artifice, Madsen's authenticity was a gift. He didn't hide behind PR statements or manufactured images. What you saw was what you got. And in the end, that's why people loved him, not just for the characters he played, but for the man he was. Now, as the lights dim and the curtain falls on his remarkable life, fans and colleagues alike are finding their own ways to say goodbye. Quentin Tarantino is reportedly considering a special tribute screening of Reservoir Dogs in Madsen's honor. Fans have taken to social media to share stories, scenes, and personal encounters with the actor that highlight just how much he meant to people. And there are already talks in Hollywood circles about creating a documentary that not only chronicles his career, but also examines the cost of fame, addiction, and the pressures of surviving in an industry that often forgets its wounded warriors. Michael Madsen didn't live a quiet life, and he certainly didn't go quietly. He lived loudly, passionately, and unapologetically. He made mistakes, sure, but he also made magic. And as time passes, his legend is likely to grow, not just because of what he did on screen, but because of what he represented. The flawed, fiercely human spirit of the working-class actor, the artistic soul behind the tough guy mask, the rebel who never stopped fighting for redemption. There's something almost poetic about the way Madsen lived and died. In the end, it was his heart, worn and wounded from years of feeling everything, that gave out. But that same heart is what gave his performances so much power and depth. So we remember him not just as Mr. Blonde or Bud or any number of unforgettable roles, but as Michael, a man who tried, who loved, who suffered, and who gave us everything he had. Hollywood may be quieter now, but his voice, his presence, will echo in film history forever. Rest in power, Michael Madsen. Your final scene may be over, but your story plays on.